of the DPME, Honorable Ramokgopa, the DG, the team of the DPME, the Deputy Minister, Honorable Mutaung, the SG, and also the team of the Brand SA and the support staff. We are starting with our meeting. Masi, can you quickly flight the
I'm not Honorable Mutaung, Chief. My name is Pinky Kikap, Deputy Minister for DPM.
Thank you very much, DM. I didn't see you in the platform. I'm so sorry. Good morning. I only saw this, I can't see all of you. I'm so sorry. Good morning as well.
Can you see the agenda, Chair?
Yes, thank you very much. This is the agenda before the committee. And let me take as the first item, let me take this opportunity to welcome everyone in the platform, the Minister of the DPME, the Deputy Minister in the DPME, the team of the DPME, the Minister in the Presidency, the SG, and also the Brand SA and the support staff. And most importantly, honorable members, let me also welcome the Minister in the Presidency, Minister Ramokgopa. I know that is attending this portfolio committee for the first time. You are welcome, and also welcome the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Honorable Mutaung. We've been with Honorable Deputy Minister Pinky all these years from last year and last of last year. But all the new ministers and the deputy ministers in this portfolio committee, they are all welcome. And wish you all the best in your ministries. Masi, the second item will be the apologies. Any apology from your side?
Yes, Chair. Good morning to you, Chair, and honorable members, ministers present, and colleagues. Yes, Chair, we only have two apologies, one from Honorable Malomane and one from Honorable James at this moment, Chair. Thank you so much, Chair.
I know that there's the third apology of Minister Nchaveni, but obviously I've seen in the platform the Deputy Minister is here. I think we must note the three apologies.
Chairperson, my hand is up.
Which hand? I can't see the hand. Okay. Honorable Maglua.
Yeah, Chairperson, I really also like to join you like the Honorable Tuli yesterday from my side saying, welcoming the ministers and the deputy ministers. I'm doing this because we had quite a reluctancy from the previous minister in the presidency not attending this meeting. And I also noted the absence of Minister Nchaveni now. I just want to make that comment. And it's really pleasing and we appreciate the fact that there are now a minister involved in this meeting as well as deputy ministers. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Maglua. I think you are referring to the DPME, not really the minister Nchaveni. You are referring in terms of the minister who are always absent, the minister from the DPME. Honorable Ntuli. Honorable Ntuli.
Chair, thank you. Greetings to everyone in the meeting. Our ministers, deputy ministers, Chair, also joining you on behalf of this committee to welcome the new deployees in our portfolio committee. And also, Chairperson, would like to raise this issue of the bar of women being raised so high by our President Cyril Ramaphosa by affording women the opportunity in this regard. Thank you so much. Malbongwe, Minister Marupeng, Malbongwe, and other women deployees. But lastly, Chair, can I be released at 12, Chairperson? I've got the doctor's appointment as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ntuli. Thank you very much. Now, honorable members and colleagues, the purpose of this meeting today is to afford an opportunity for the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, the Brand SA, the Stats SA, to present their tabled annual performance plans and budget for 2023 and 2024 financial year. And then according to the agenda, then I will quickly then give the Honorable Minister Ramokgopa to do her opening remarks, and immediately then the presenters of the DPME will take over. Over to you, Honorable Marupeng Ramokgopa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the session. And good morning to everyone, and thank you for welcoming us and making us feel that we are going to be part of a team that definitely want to see South Africa become something better. So I really thank you for that. Let me take this opportunity, of course, to ensure that I acknowledge the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. I also acknowledge all the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. I also want to acknowledge all the other deputy ministers that are here, especially my own Deputy Minister Kekana, who has been so much of a great help, because at least she's been in this portfolio for quite a while. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the Director General of DPME and all the other senior officials that are here today, and everybody else who's part of this platform. As you have already said, Chairperson, today it's actually my first time to be in attendance to this Portfolio Committee, precisely because I was just appointed in March 2023. I definitely look forward to working closely with yourselves and to also make sure that we strengthen accountability from ourselves to you, but also ensure that coordination and integration of government planning systems towards the realization of our NDP Vision 2030, the South Africa we want to live in, becomes a reality. As the DPME, our primary mandate, of course, as you already know, is to facilitate the implementation of the NDP through the development of sector-specific and outcome-specific medium-term plans and delivery agreements. And we're also responsible, of course, to ensure that we monitor and evaluate the implementation of all these plans. We're actually trying to ensure that whatever it is that we do does not only look at outputs which would be targets like percentages and a number of meetings and a number of that, but outcome, as we then now evaluate if the things that we are doing have an impact on enhancing the quality of life. This mandate that I've just spoken about entails ensuring alignment of departmental strategic and annual plans and budget allocations with the government's medium-term strategic framework. We must acknowledge, Comrade Chairperson or Honorable Member, that the progress made by government in the introduction and Maintenance of an integrated system of planning within public service is quite important. And I do believe that at least there is a lot that have been done, although there's still much space for us to actually improve. This planning is reflected in national departments, provincial departments, and some of the state-owned entities. Despite all this progress made in the current planning system, honorable members, more needs to be done, as I've already said, most especially in the local government, in an integrated way. This requires us to actually implement agency, especially with the implementation and the institutionalization of the district development model, because that's where we will be able to coordinate all efforts that government is doing. As you already know, or as if you may be aware, is that the DDM remains an important pillar of planning and implementation of policies and programs at the local government level, which is definitely the cold space of service delivery in any way. Honorable members, as DPME, we present our APP of 2023-2024 financial year on the eve of the end of the sixth administration under the leadership of His Excellency President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa. The presentation is delivered, of course, in the context of stark socioeconomic and political challenges in South Africa, with the electricity crisis being the top of the agenda. In fact, I don't even think it's a crisis anymore, but it has gotten into a disaster. However, we are having hope that with the new interventions that the president have put in place, we would then now be able to see changes very soon. The far-reaching impact of the load shedding has affected the quality of livelihoods. It has also disrupted social order and strained economic productivity and growth. And this time around, it's not only something that we see in the more structured economy, but also in the unstructured economy as well. In addition to the electricity crisis, we are faced with compounding challenges at a domestic, regional, and international level. This includes the high unemployment rates, especially amongst our youth, and increasing cost of living due to the factors including to the ongoing war in Ukraine, and increase crime rates and poor service delivery due to crumbling infrastructure, reduced budget allocation, and staff shortages. We know that since the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to do with some budget costs that we had to cut here and there, but it is still difficult to get back to the normal ways. But we do believe that we will make ways to be able to get back to what needs to be done with the resources that are adequate. Despite these challenges, honorable members, we must remain committed to accelerating development that will translate into improved quality and livelihoods for our people. To turn things around, we must strengthen coordination across government and the monitoring, reporting, and evaluation of the implementation of critical government programs, projects, and interventions. These steps are necessary to ensure that we remain on track with Vision 2030, which is now left only with 7 years. Honorable Chairperson, the intended impact of the DPME is to improve the country's developmental outcomes as envisaged in the NDP 2030 through effective implementation of the medium-term strategic framework from 2019 to 2024. The outcomes where we intend to achieve includes the following: being an efficient and effective department characterized by good corporate governance and ethical leadership, institutionalization of long-term and medium-term to short-term developmental agenda is envisaged, as I've already said, in the NDP by creating a functional integrated government planning system. We're actually trying to ensure that we bring back the core program of or outcomes of the NDP as being the business plan of the entire government and also private sector to a certain extent. We're also ensuring that we are going to promote active citizenry in contributing to the implementation of the NDP through the MTSF. And that includes what I've just spoken about, general public, business, and everybody else, because government can't do it alone. We need to do it together with everybody else. So ours is to ensure that we just work together and put systems together, but to also create an enabling environment for everyone else to be able to play a role. We're also planning to ensure that government programs are actively monitored for improved accountability and service delivery, and also promoting the use of evidence to support the planning and implementation, monitoring towards the developmental agenda. We want our department to actually ensure that we concentrate on planning for development, not just planning so that we can monitor and evaluate, but we ensure that we plan, coordinate for development so that when we monitor and evaluate, we know the outcomes that we should be looking for. Therefore, our department's APP for the current financial year aims to be catalytic in department's intended impact. Our APPs are anchored on the revised strategic plan of 2020 to 2025, which is informed by the NDP, of course, the revised MTSF, and the 7 Apex priorities of the 6th administration. In addition, the APP focuses on the 2023 SONA commitments pronounced by the President. Considering the fiscal and regulatory constraints, the current APP is focused on addressing the following. We're going to focus to ensure that we strengthen the National Planning Commission as an independent institution to monitor the implementation of the NDP and provide feedback and guidance to government with the support of the Secretariat, of course. To also strengthen the planning processes and alignment in government in the medium term to achieve long-term goals of the NDP through the work of the National Planning Coordination Branch in the department. To also continue monitoring the implementation of key government programs in the MTSF 2019 to 2024 and produce progress reports and implementation to be presented to Cabinet and anybody else, including yourself, who may be needing data to be able to process some of the things that you need to process. We also want to make sure that we monitor frontline services, including the complaints and compliments emanating from the presidential hotlines and building capacity programs. We also want to generate evidence on government performance against its set priorities, including the MTSF and SONA commitments, as I've already said. The DPME will conduct rapid evaluation on programs that are aimed at achieving our annual Apex priorities on the 6th administration. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members and colleagues, this APP provides a pragmatic framework to be implemented by DPME in pursuit of our vision of improving government outcomes and improving the quality of lives of our people. It takes guidance from the NDP on guiding our collective journey towards the Vision 2030 and employs the MTSF as the vehicle that will carry us over the 5 years. We continue to mention and stress the issue of processes, that it will start from NDP, going to MTSF, then coming to the APP, then from then service delivery would then now be easily monitored if we follow that and make sure that we align everything else that we do to that particular process that I just outlined. Allow me to hand over to the Director General of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Dr. Robert Nkuna, to further elaborate on the department's annual performance plan. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to just say my views, and I look forward, of course, to working with you so that we account for the work that is entrusted to us. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I give over to yourself to give over to my Director General, of course. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. And over to you, DG.
Okay. Good morning, Chairperson, members of the committee, Minister, who has been welcomed to this committee. We have already done so on our part as the department committed to support the minister, DM Kekana and DM Ntaung, DGs who are present here, and other colleagues from DPME and other state entities. With your permission, we have been covered in terms of the strategic thrust of our presentation, And I will then request that I ask Mr. Clement Madale to commence with the presentation of the DPME. And together with the political principals, we will take and field the questions later. Thank you.
With your permission, Chair, may I proceed?
Yes, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members, ministers, and deputy ministers present. Our presentation covers the following areas. We speak on the mandate of the DPME. We focus on the core functions, the vision, mission, and value statements, our strategic plan, impact, and outcome statement, the MTSF priorities that we are focusing on, and we also give overview of programs and deliverables, as well as detailed outputs, outcome, and annual targets. And the CFO will then handle the finance bit. Chair, it looks like my presentation is not moving.
Yes, it's not moving. Mr. Mwebe and Mas, can you assist?
I'll stop sharing and share again and see if yeah, now it's moving. Okay, thank you very much. Our mandate, Chair, focuses on the 6 areas that we have identified. In the main is the institutionalization of planning, long-term planning, medium and short-term planning. We monitor implementation of the NDP and the MTSF. We evaluate critical government programs with the intention of informing planning monitoring, as well as interventions that are required. We also deal with interventions on behalf of Cabinet and the President through various interministerial commitments. Our 3 core functions, Chair, as we know, is planning, monitoring, and evaluation. Our vision, mission, and value statement, as stated, is that we want to be a leader and catalyst in achieving national development outcomes and impact. Our mission is to focus on developing and coordinating evidence-based planning, monitoring, and evaluation towards the developmental outcomes as well as impact. Our values want to be client-focused and be a learning organization and promote progressive and quality management practices that are transparent. I will not speak much on this. I think the minister has touched on the strategic thrust of the department. I'll then move to what our APP is anchored on, which is mainly the 7 priorities as identified by the 6th administration. This is what drives us into the implementation of various government programs. These priorities, I think, are well known, Honorable Chair. I will not read through them. Coming to our program-specific outputs, we are organized in 5 branches. The first branch being administration, whose overall mandate is to provide strategic leadership and management to the department. This branch, of course, consists of a ministry, departmental management, which is mainly the Office of the Director General and the supporting components, as well as corporate and financial services and administration. Here, our key focus is to ensure that we contribute towards job creation by filling of vacant posts. We want to ensure that we empower the youth and also ensure that people with disabilities are catered for in the organization. Achieving gender equality at 50% is our key focus. We also want to ensure that our business processes are automated and are supportive of the vision and mission of the department. Of course, critical to this is the payment of suppliers within 30 days to ensure that businesses are indeed sustainable. Coming to our specific outputs, I will not read through them, Chairperson, but critical to that is also to maintain the vacancy rate at below 10%. One area that we also focus on is on the issue of risk assessment, given the emergence of disaster as a key concern across various sectors. So as DPME, we want to focus in this area to ensure that as far as possible, we prevent disasters. Coming to our National Planning Commission Secretariat, this is the under Program 2A, which provide and guide national and long-term planning, as well as monitor the implementation of the NDP and mobilize society behind our developmental vision. In the main, this program focuses on three key thematic areas, which mainly is the economy, the social protection, governance, as well as research partnerships for development. I will not read through the various focus areas that the NPC is responsible for, but the key is that they have to engage stakeholders and mobilize society behind the NDP, and also to ensure that government is accountable to the people, and people are taken along in terms of the implementation of our developmental agenda and thrust. This work is mainly done through stakeholder engagement, through research, and of course, the NPC monitors the implementation of progress towards our developmental agenda. Program 2B, which is the National Planning Coordination. This is the branch which is very critical in ensuring that there is alignment between departmental long-term, medium, and short-term plans with government priorities. We also ensure that through this program that key government programs are budgeted for through the development of the budget prioritization framework. Our focus is also on ensuring that we support specialization of the national development agenda within the national planning system. And of course, the minister has always also spoken about the district developmental model, which has become an integrated part of planning as a tool. Of course, those are their products, budget prioritization framework, the assessment of strategic plans and annual performance plans to ensure compliance with the NDP and the MTSF. For the coming financial year, we'll also focus on the development of the planning legal framework, which will inform our planning bill, which is in process. Hopefully, as my colleagues speak to this, will also indicate the progress that we have made so far and what is outstanding that we plan to implement in the coming financial year. Our sector monitoring services, this is the branch that focuses mainly on the monitoring of the implementation of the MTSF. And through this monitoring. They produce integrated MTSF monitoring reports, which informs cabinet to make informed decision about the interventions that are required. They also focus on the monitoring of critical government programs such as gender-based violence implementation. We also deal with local government management improvement, which mainly focuses on ensuring that local government is supported to assess its strengths and weaknesses and develop improvement plans that will enable them to deliver better services to the citizenry. We will also focus on food and nutrition security as part of some of the critical government programs that are important. The other critical area is to produce a progress report on the intervention designed to increase adherence, encompassing the role of private sector, trade unions, centers and TVET colleges. This work is already underway, and we will continue to focus in this area in the coming financial year. We'll also monitor industrial parks. We'll report on a number of critical areas such as climate change and transition. But critical to this is to ensure that all our monitoring we introduce the electronic monitoring system so that the information become readily available. Towards this end, we'll be developing a business case and technical design for the development of the system. Of course, Operation Phakisa is also a critical program that we are implementing as DPME. And towards this end, we'll be improving the electronic monitoring system to ensure that reporting on this is accurate and the information is readily available. Program 4, Chair, focuses on public sector monitoring and capacity building. In this program, that's where we monitor frontline services, as well as capacity development. But also critical to this program is the monitoring of and the evaluation of the implementation of Priority 1, which is building a capable and ethical developmental state. Part of the products that we produce, we monitor performance agreements that are signed between the minister and the president, and we have developed a PMDS system to implement this program. We also look at the performance agreements of HODs, which also should link with the work that ministers are doing to ensure that the work of all departments is coordinated and the priorities that the president has set are actually being implemented. So through this program, we produce reports on the implementation thereof. We also monitor the implementation of cases that are reported through the presidential hotline and provides quarterly reports in that regard. The minister has also touched on this. I do not need to overemphasize them. Of course, the district development model, minister has also touched on this. Then we come to program 5, which is responsible for evaluation as well as research and knowledge development, as well as data integration and analysis. The work of this branch is critical in supporting our planning and monitoring functions. as well as to ensure that we've got the necessary data that we need in doing our work. The products that they produce, Chair, it's mainly the evidence plans that they produce evaluations of critical government programs, and of course, part of the work that they are now doing is to ensure that we've got a functional central data management system that will be used to support the work of the department as well as government as a whole. I'll now, through your permission, Chair, allow the CFO to take the meeting through the finance report. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, the members, the Minister and the DMs and the DG and all the colleagues. I will focus more on this slide. The other slides, the subsequent slides are summarized in this main slide, slide 34. The budget of the department for 2023-24 is 475 million. It was reduced from the one of 2022-23 by 5.5 million. The budget comprised of Program 1 administration, which was allocated 193 million, being 40% of the total budget. Program 2, the National Planning Commission coordination, it's allocated 84 million, which comprise of 18% of the budget. Program 3, sector monitoring, it's 69.5 million, which is 15% of the total allocation. Public sector monitoring, which is Program 4, it's 85 million, 85.5 million, which is 18% of the budget. And Program 5 is 43 million, which is 9% of the budget. In terms of budget allocation per economic classification, compensation of employees in the current financial year, it's 322.6 million. However, we envisage that we will have a shortfall due to the 2023-24 wage increases, which Treasury has indicated that we would need about 17 million. Compensation of employees makes 68% of our total budget allocation. Then we have goods and services. The goods and services is 147.9 million, which is 31% of the total budget allocation. We don't have transfers much. The only time we pay for transfers is when we pay leave gratuities, so we don't budget for it. But if we, as and when we pay leave gratuities, we do a variant between or shifts between the economic classifications. Payment for capital assets, it's 5.1 million, which is 1% of the budget. Thank you, Chairperson. The rest of the slides, it's detailing each sub-program within the program in terms of their financial resources, how they are allocated. Thank you.
Chairperson, that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Chair.
Sorry, I was in and out of the meeting. I'm on load shedding.
Yes, Chair. DPMB is finished with their presentation. I think Brand SA will follow, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Mercy. I thought that Honorable Kibi will take over if I'm in and out. I'm on load shedding, started now at 10. But also, thank you very much to the presentation of the DPME. Let me first also welcome and acknowledge Honorable DM Murolong from this portfolio committee. I didn't see him like Honorable DM Pinky Kekan. You are acknowledged, Honorable DM, and welcome to this committee. Now I will request that, because I can see there are two deputy ministers from in the presidents. I'm not sure who has been given an opportunity to represent Minister Nchaveni, but I will give one of them to do the remarks, and then immediately it will be the presentation of the brand SA and then the states SA. Honorable Mutaung and Honorable Murolong.
Thanks, Chair, for the opportunity. Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, Minister Ramkhopa and Deputy Minister Kekani, Deputy Minister Murolong, Acting CEO, Brand SA, Chairperson, GCIS bears the responsibility for providing strategic communication leadership in government, as well as to coordinate communication practice in government and for empowerment domestic citizens. On the other hand, the management of international reputation of the country is the function of the Brand SA. Chairperson, a nation brand comprises an identity and image. The concept of nation branding is closely linked to the theory of the country of origin effect. If you think of Japan, the first thing that comes to your mind is electronics. If you think of Italy and Paris, it's luxury clothing, items and expensive sports cars. So as a country, we need to find our country's origin effect, something that comes in our mind when we think about our country beyond the late statesman Madiba. Members, this entity is therefore tasked with managing perceptions of the country in order to produce a differentiated image that can draw attention to the competitiveness and comparative advantages of the nation. Chairperson, every government in today's competitive environment has or is attempting to establish an entity through which they promote a given country to their targeted market, which the intention is to attract investment, migration, culture and heritage, the people governance, exports and tourism. The role of managing South African international reputation as a destination for investment is one of the critical roles that state-owned companies like Brand SA plays, which is significant in a country's fight to reduce poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. Third, the role of the COEs as the service delivery arm of government is identified in a National Development Plan 2030 as a major driving force for service delivery and structural development. The achievement of the priorities for the MTSF period, in particular economic transformation and job creation, and a capable, ethical, and developmental state will require focus on positioning South Africa in a world. As we present our 2023-2024 APP, we need to remind each other that today's world is becoming one seamless market, that owing to pressure stemming from globalization, all nations for their shares of global markets, travelers, capital investment, students, entrepreneurs, international sporting and cultural events, as well as to attract the global media and people from other nations. Chairperson, the milestones of this government is to inform global citizens about what this country has to offer through Brand SA, and this functions by Brand SA carries the core message of the sixth administration that should leave no one behind. Leaving no one behind means confronting issues, challenges ahead on. We are working on appointment of board to stabilize the situation at the government level. Once the board is appointed, we will stabilize and appoint full-time management so that we bring about stability in Brand SA. Brand SA will continue to carry its mandate under the ministry in the presidency. Brand SA International Investors Perceptions Research. Brand SA also drawn insight from its international investors perceptions research to assist the entity in developing, amongst others, its strategy to engage in the relevant markets. The international investors perception study is geared towards understanding investors' perception of South Africa as a country which will do business. A key component of Brand SA Investors Perception Survey is the country's brand health funnel, which measures the country's reputation according to levels of awareness, familiarities, favorabilities, trust, and advocacy. Brand SA therefore also monitors both incentives as well as disincentives for investment. With these few words, Chairperson, I thank you. I'm also looking forward to work with the Portfolio Committee. Thank you for welcoming us. Let me give the acting CEO of Brand SA to lead us with the presentation. I thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Honorable TM and acting CEO.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson, ministers and deputy ministers in attendance, members of the Portfolio Committee and colleagues from other entities. As I have been introduced, my name is Sithembile Ntombela and I'm the acting CEO of Brand South Africa. With me today is, and we'll be sharing a presentation with, is Ms. Mpumi Mabuza, whom will take us through the actual APP from the planning phase all the way till the quarterly targets and outputs. So without further ado, let me start with this presentation, and thank you, DM, for that context. Our story remains consistent over the years. We are a country that is proudly forging ahead by breaking new grounds and inspiring new ways. Next slide, Chairperson and members of the committee. I will take you through the institutional framework and governance, which really looks at the Organizations Act, the vision and the mission and mandate. And I would also cover the South Africa at a glance, which looks at the foundation of elements that informs our strategy. And then Ms. Mabuza will start from 3 all the way till 6. I won't spend much time, but as a reminder that we are a trust in terms of the Trust Property Act, and we were established as an agency that is mandated to manage South Africa's reputation. Our mandate is very much important in that we are responsible for managing the country's reputation. So it matters how the world sees South Africa. And I won't touch on the board issues because the Deputy Minister has already given us a feedback in terms of their commitment to expedite the process of appointing the board. And then from a mandate's perspective, as I've said, it is to manage the country's nation brand reputation so that we can improve our competitiveness as well as our attractiveness. We often speak to a mandate that is two-pronged. The one that is outward facing, which speaks to the level of interventions and activities that we project out there so that we are able to attract inward investment, attract talent to come and work in South Africa, attract students to come and study in South Africa and even visit in South Africa. And then the other bit of the mandate speaks to an inward one. So it speaks to our ability and interventions that are speaking to South Africans and getting South Africans to rally behind the brand South Africa, because we must understand that for us to live the brand and be proud and get them to play the role of advocacy, we must also articulate what it means to be South African. And that is what our domestic aspect of a mandate does. It articulates the identity, it measures all the critical aspects that include pride of the country, that speak to social cohesion, that speaks to active citizenship. The vision and the mission, Chairperson, have not changed. They remain the same. And then I would move quickly to the role of Brand South Africa, which then speaks to the key critical things that sets us apart from the other entities, because we know there's always that confusion that says you are proudly South Africa, or so how do you differ, for instance, with the GCIS? Ours is the one that speaks to our ability to promote the country in its totality. So we are not sector focused as such. We are telling the South African story in a positive manner, consistently over time. So we are about building confidence in South Africa, investor confidence. We are about enhancing how the outlook of South Africa is. So from an international stature, we want South Africa to constantly be at the top of mind. We also protect our nation brand reputation. We are under siege, we are going through challenges, and any other brand that goes through those challenges, the brand custodians are the ones that are responsible to do damage control. So what we call that reputation management, where we start to communicate interventions that speaks to our challenges, such as, for instance, the recent grey listing, even the issues around the perceptions of South Africa being seen as xenophobic, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we play an integral role by bridging the gap between perception and what is the actual reality. And then obviously there's a lot of work that speaks to our narrative and how we develop insights, because we have to know how South Africa performs amongst its peer countries. And we must be able to empower our stakeholders with that information so that they can wear the brand with pride and speak from a position of understanding really how South Africa performs. And then as I spoke to the local mandate, we are about a country we are about an entity that promotes an inspired pride and advocacy amongst South Africans, so that it's not a job that is left up to the government or the people at working at Brand South Africa, but every South African that is proud and calls themselves South Africa, they must be able to tell a good story of South Africa. And then we counter negative messages and showcase the achievements of our country, of our NDP. A fundamental slide, which is slide number 9, very much important, Chairperson, in that it shows the alignment of this entity to the national priorities. As painted here at the foundation of the strategy is our intention and our output and activities that are aligned with the agendas set out in the National Development Plan. As you have seen there, we've outlined some of those chapters in which we're contributing directly. A better Africa and the world, social cohesion, positioning, and these things, they speak directly to our mandate. Hence, there's that alignment and our contribution. The AfCFTA, which is very much critical and a huge and untapped strategy and a plan that we believe can make trading in Africa much better. And we also have SONA priorities, the investment attraction, the ER&R plan. We continue to support the presidency in ensuring that we amplify messages around the stories of why investors should think of South Africa when they think of investing. And we are about that as in ensuring that we are talking and we are communicating consistently on the issues around restoring energy security and the interventions that have been put. So to sum up this slide, really it says we are bang on target with where the country is going, with where the blueprint of the country is, to what end, to the 2 impact statements that are embedded in our APP. We are doing all of this so that we create a prosperous nation brand. If it prospers, if the country prospers, then we know that the people and its citizens, stakeholders will benefit. That is why we do what we do as Brand South Africa. The second impact statement is a patriotic and a socially cohesive nation. If our people are cohesive and are patriotic, even investors come, they will welcome them and they won't see them as threats, because we are doing that job to make them understand why we need investors. Then slide number 10 to 19, I will walk through each slide very quickly, but they really set the scene in terms of the state of the nation brand from a research perspective. So this slide is just to remind the members of the portfolio committee that our work is to shape perceptions around those pillars of the hexagon. How people see investment potential and attractiveness. That's where we are prominent, and we do campaigns, marketing campaigns that profiles and tell the stories around the incentives that we have. Exports, the level of satisfaction. So we start to use our entrepreneurs, and everything that is proudly made in South Africa, we project it to the world. Our people, their skills and openness, including their ability to shine. I mean, we are talking about your Trevor Noahs of this world. We are talking about the Ndlovu choirs. There are many, and they're in different sectors. We profile them and in how we package our messages. Culture and heritage remains one of our strongest competitive advantage pillar. So we need to nurture it and continue to make sure that we focus on that, including our sporting pros. And then governance, equally important, because every country has to be seen to have some kind of regulations and rules. So for instance, issues around human rights, issues around the rule of law and our ability to protect investors. Those are the 6 components that we use when we end up giving an example on the side. For instance, then how we measure how South Africa pairs within these pillars of the hexagon. The next slide then speaks to the reputation study. As I said, we are an entity that manages South Africa's reputation. It is important that we understand the psyche, we understand how the mood and the tone of investors in other markets. So this study essentially looks at the 3 tiers, and those are the countries without me reading them. But what is important is that at least it's a nice spread in terms of some of the African countries as well as some of the developed nations. And then the next slide speaks to a research. So this slide says, people that are not familiar with South Africa, they were asked, when you see South Africa, what comes to mind? And this slide tells us that sports, entertainment, and arts and scene, which is often what we call a creative arts pillar, remains the strongest in terms of shaping the reputation and image of South Africa. Space, place, nature, culture, people, so which means tourism. And as I've said, culture again. So those 4 components is what actually shape us positively amongst people that are not even familiar with the brand. The next slide then speaks to what is crippling our image. So if we were to have a cohesive strategy across all the government departments, we must fight these 3 things that we see there. Largely safety, crime, security, and then public governance. The last one speaks to ecosystems and business, economy and business ecosystems. Again, when we probe further, we understand that that speaks to the ease of doing business. Some of the red tapes that are still there that we need to deal with, issues such as the visa. And I'm happy to know that our government has prioritized those issues and they're dealing, which means they're listening when we do give these feedbacks. The next slide then speaks to us overlapping both familiar people and those that are not familiar. They follow the same trend. If you look at the spider web, it says the strongest areas for South Africa remain those creative arts, the sports, the tourism, the culture and heritage. The disablers, what is crippling us, it's crime. And we must work hard and deal with those interventions around crime and public governance. So what does it mean from a Brand South Africa strategy? It simply means that we need to focus on the positives. We outweigh more of the positives while we deal with the negatives. And we mitigate the negatives by communicating all the interventions that are being put in place to address those issues that are negatively impacting on our nation brand. And then the next slide speaks to a very summed up, they called it a cloud map. What comes to South Africa when you think of South Africa, both familiar and not familiar? What is positive is that 65% at least tells us that the reputation is good, reputation of South Africa, despite our challenges. And 35% was negative, and we know those negativity. When you look and zone in those colors, it's things such as, you know, the racism, because this is perception, it's not quite true. And ours from a strategy is to bridge this gap and also to shift this association. Brand South Africa would like to see technology and science being, you know, bold, more bolder than, you know, the animals and wildlife. We want to see innovation, you know, being bold. We want to see the service industries, our financial institution. So we are doing that job currently, and we are going to address it as well in our APP that Mpumi will take us through. Very briefly, the other research indices that we analyzed, they are very important. They tell us from a competitiveness as well as from a reputation perspective, how we are doing as a country. And those are the indices. Open budget, we know we perform very well. We are ranked number 2 out of, I think, 130 countries, if I'm not mistaken. Rule of law, very important because it shapes then all our regulations and policies that we put in place in as far as investment is concerned. So moving to the next slide, what is equally important and the foundation of this APP is understanding the issues in the environment. We have gone through the research part and the perception part of how the world sees South Africa. Now we have to tackle some of the issues in the environment. The low growth as a result of COVID-19, the IMF that continues to predict the low growth, and we also know the geopolitical tensions and the impact and the ripple effect it continues to have in as far as inflation and the high standard of living that is now become very costly. The issues of climate change as depicted in the WEF Global Risk Report this year. There also are the issues that are embedded in our APP in terms of where we are going, because we have to be 5 steps ahead. The energy security I spoke to, the high unemployment issues, which is something that we will address in the domestic environment through our program, and Mpumi will speak to you about that. And then the last one speaks to the recovery and our interventions when we try and mobilize CEOs of the private sector, especially the multinationals, to tell a story of why they invest in South Africa. And then we take those stories, we place them, those videos in our media partnerships, targeting international audiences. So how do we then assess which markets do we go to? It's very simple. We use our international reputation study. It tells us exactly which countries have a low familiarity, which countries are not aware of South Africa, or there's low affinity, and that's how we target our plan. And even when we do media buying, we do it precisely based on those insights. But there's also the strategic allies that we speak in, where South Africa plays a very important role, such as the BRICS formation, you know, the G20, the AU. And then we also look at our stakeholders, because alignment is key. We have to work with the DTICs of the world, the Invest SA, and the missions abroad. Whatever we roll out as a campaign, we share it with the missions. It makes it easy in promoting a cohesive message. And really, it also speaks to the countries, as I've said, with low awareness levels. Now that we are very clear about how the world sees South Africa and from a stature and reputation, and we are clear which markets and how we select those markets, we then say, okay, who are going to be our stakeholders then? And those are the stakeholders in a nutshell. Brand South Africa works with and through different stakeholders in government, business, media, which is very important, as well as general South Africans, because they have to, as I said, to play the role of advocacy. And then now that we are clear on the stakeholders, what messages are we then promoting? Our messages as Brand South Africa are anchored on 3 pillars: diversity of our people. We tell a very broad story. Diversity of our economy basket, because we've got so much more to find in South Africa and invest in South Africa. And Brand South Africa's mandate is to really put context and tell that story. Creativity, we are talking about how we depict a story of success and interventions and innovations that are coming from South Africa. And lastly, competitiveness. Anything we do, they speak to these three aspects. Competitiveness, why are we competitive? What is our unique selling proposition, etc.? And where are the sectors that we are doing well? And that's what we do from a messaging. I will not go through in every detail of the key messages. And then what we then do, we draft, members of the committee, we draft and package our messages by each of the sector and of the agenda matter that we want to be a champion. And then we rally with that, and then we go and we place in markets, whether we are on the ground or we are remote. The merits are that of us building a South Africa that is sustainable and is reputable. That is where the foundation of the strategy is at on members of the committee. And through you, Chair, I will now hand over to Ms. Mabuza to then take us through the planning process and outputs. I just thought it's fundamental to understand why we do, what informs those targets that you will see, that it all lies, the pudding is in the detail, in us understanding the dynamics at the back end. Through you, Chair, so I will hand over to Ms. Mabuza. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee, Minister present and Deputy Ministers present in the meeting. Just to confirm that the planning process was iterative, we were able to consult with the board and had several internal workshops just to review the plan and ensure that we still on the same strategic path that we set a few years ago. The CEO has given us and the Deputy Minister, in fact, a good overview of what feeds into our plan for the financial year. We understand the context and we've spoken through that. We've tried to be responsive to those issues. How do we attract investments, and how do we ensure that the country recovers and we contribute in our way to the recovery in terms of economic recovery of the country, managing the reputational challenges to respond proactively to negative narratives that are in the environment, and also be proactive in sharing positive insights that we have. And we've also set in our plans key levels of success. We know that research and insights, data-driven insights, will enable us to achieve this plan. We need strategic alliances and partners, whether they are in government or private sector, even civil society is quite key. And then integrated marketing and communications activities that are informed by, and the two above will help us be able to reach our objectives. The organization has 3 programs. Program 1 is administration. It's aligned to Program 1 in many government departments and other entities. It looks at the internal focus of the organization. It talks to our finances, our human capital, environment, even IT. And the key outcome that we've set under Program 1 talks to improved reputation of Brand South Africa as an entity. The targets that we've set for this financial year talk to achieving an unqualified audit outcome at the end of the financial year. Our operational plans also include the details in terms of the controls and the systems improvement that we need to do in order to be able to achieve that. The finance team is currently does payments every week, that suppliers are paid definitely within 30 days. But this is done on a weekly basis as soon as the user department has confirmed delivery of a service. The process is initiated from finance just to ensure that as the suppliers are paid on time. We are working on a strategy to improve our BBBE rating as an entity. We've started working on the country strategy. In fact, this quarter, it's important for the entity to ensure that funds and resources that are spent goes towards designated communities. The work has been done, but also we need to ensure that we record it properly and we account for it in a proper manner. And that's the plan that we put in place. And we aim to have a level 5 scorecard rating at the end of the financial year. The standard vacancy rate target has been set also for Brand South Africa. To inform the portfolio committee, currently we have a relatively high vacancy rate at 24.5, but the organization is on a recruitment drive to fill vacant positions, that we have normal attrition with resignations, which is standard. It happens everywhere, but also there are plans in place just to improve also our recruitment timeframes in order to manage this better. If we achieve the above, to be honest, I think we'll be able to also reach the target of 90% overall organizational performance rating. And we have also in place a plan around ensuring our IT security and systems availability, and even with challenges around load shedding, the IT team has put in place systems to ensure that the team has got access to connectivity, and we are able to function properly. Program 2 is part of the core business of the organization, talks to brand, marketing, and communication. The first outcome that we have in Program 2 is increased attractiveness and competitiveness of the nation brand. That's the main function of the business of the entity, to be honest. And in here, we'll have the strategic marketing campaigns. We also have embedded the reputation management strategy under this program, and it also includes the global reputation study and the various research insights that we use to inform our work and to assess the performance of the nation brand. We have within this program, from the first outcome, planned to continue with strategic marketing campaigns. These will target the key markets that highlighted above, and often more the BRIC nations and the investor profile type countries, and also the continent, which is also strategic and important for us to focus on. The marketing campaigns will also be developed in alliance or in understanding the key factors and the priority sectors of the country, the sectors that are promoted, for instance, by Invest South Africa. We have a plan to leverage some strategic platforms throughout the year. These include the BRIC Summit. South Africa is hosting the BRIC Summit later on this year. It's important. We also look at platforms such as the World Economic Forum and also investment conference type platforms. So that sits within that output. We track the performance of the nation brand, as we've seen above. Not just the global reputation study, which is commissioned by the organization, but we look at other sources of data from other reports that are used by investors to assess any market that they want to enter into. The next few targets talk to specifically the reputation management strategy of the organization, and the reputation management strategy then includes a proactive planning and communication of positive attributes of the country, but also respond to any type of negative narrative that there may be in the environment, and we address that through communications tools. We have a media monitoring analysis that we constantly understand what is being said about the country, especially amongst international media platforms. And we also have a need to engage with media. South African media sometimes can be negative, and a relationship with media is important. Also for us to build that relationship, then we've had sessions with them where they do share that negative news sells a bit more, but we also need to appeal to their patriotic nature so they can equally share. It's sort of a balanced narrative, share some of the positive content that is available in the country. And also we'll have an ongoing, we've got a very strong digital program, that's our social media pages, but also our website. This is also supported through some strategic media content that is placed on various international media or partners or domestic media partners, but also through digital communications content. Other outcome 3, which is still under program 2, is increased nation brand advocacy and active citizenship. As the acting CEO mentioned, we look at instilling pride and patriotism among South Africans. We do this primarily through the Play Your Part program that we have, and also the Global South Africans program that we have. The Play Your Part program has become really a movement and promoting active citizenship among South Africans is key. We have several Play Your Part brand ambassadors that take the message forward on our behalf. We are able through this program to engage with youth in schools so that they understand the role that they play in improving their own lives and lives of their communities, but also for them to understand the impact and importance of a positive nation brand and how it cascades or the ripple effects of any act that they do in their own space. Through Priority 6, we are charged with also promoting constitutional awareness among South Africans. This we do through a digital campaign, but also we do through community engagements and activations. We reach out to communities, we talk to them about constitutional values and build that awareness and respect for the Constitution. The Global South Africans program is key for us. It's a key flagship program. South Africans living abroad that have a positive disposition about the country are always quite keen to play a role in promoting the country in the markets where they live. They're keen to learn more about what's happening in South Africa from South Africa, and not just from general international media. So we've created a platform as well that allows for that engagement. They can share their stories and share acts of what they're doing within the markets with other South Africans through that platform, and also with us, and we do the same with them. And the activities here, as I've outlined, are similar to what I've listed above. It's the Play Your Part program through various activities. Some of them will work with the Play Your Part brand ambassadors. The Constitutional Awareness program will have a campaign element and also community engagement elements, and we will target specific markets to engage with global South Africans. Some of these engagements can be physical, but others are done virtually, which has worked quite well for us in the past as well. And then with this program, we also look at the domestic perceptions research conducted among South African citizens for us to understand the temperature of the country, so to say, and we are able then to also use these insights to feed into our marketing strategy, our communication strategy, any other activities that we do with the South African communities. The last program, program 3, which talks to stakeholder relationships, the outcome here is simply aligned nation brand execution and experience domestically and internationally. It's important for especially international audiences to have a clear and a consistent understanding or is consistent interaction with the nation brand. So we use this program to ensure that stakeholders rally behind the nation brand. Government stakeholders, private sector, civil society stakeholders have a clear understanding of how to communicate the nation brand. We have tools within this program that empower our stakeholders, for instance, the missions abroad, various entities, in terms of how to create maybe visually a visual representation of the country, but also through this program, we're able to share some key messages, whether it's on a specific theme or sector that can be helped to position the country. With this program as well, we partner specifically with stakeholders in executing activities that promotes the nation brand. This can happen domestically and internationally as well. And one of our key flagship programs under program 3 is the Nation Brand Forum, that we host annually. And here we put together relevant stakeholders in the various sectors, various expertise that then help us also improve our nation brand positioning strategy. We engage with stakeholders and we are able to gain insights that we can embed in the strategy going forward. The current APP, for instance, is heavily influenced on some of the outcomes from the Nation Brand Forum that took place last financial year. The organizational structure has remained the same. I've spoken about the vacancy rate. This is a structure as at the end of the financial year. There would be some improvement going forward, and we'll report that accordingly because we are on a recruitment process. As the Deputy Minister has indicated, some positions in the structure will await the appointment or the announcement of the board, rather. Chief Executive Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, and Chief Financial Officer need the participation of board in that process. But all the other positions, we are in the process of filling those vacancies. And in terms of budget allocation for the current financial year, Brand South Africa has been allocated 219 million for the financial year. It's a marginal increase from last financial year, which we must confess is a challenge because the foreign exchange rate has become a bit of a challenge for us. Putting our content and our messages on international media is proved quite costly. So we have to be very careful in terms of how we split that small pie. And then just for your information, also our focus definitely is on international programs. So when it comes to program 2 and 3, brand marketing and reputation, as well as sector relations, in terms of the budget split assessment, we know that our funds primarily sit with targeting international audiences and 30% then domestic. Thank you, Chairperson. That's the end of my presentation.
No, thank you very much to the Brand SA. I will then give them SG, which is the Stats SA.
Sorry, Chair, can I, before the SG speaks, can I introduce?
No, that's fine.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me commence my abridged input by extending our appreciations to you, Chair, and all members of the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration. We are humbled by the opportunity to report to this Portfolio Committee on the performance of Statistics South Africa. We are fully cognizant of the importance of their work of oversight, and we can assure you that you will have our full cooperation from now henceforth. We acknowledge the presence of Minister Ramokgopa, Deputy Minister Kekana, and Motaung. We also acknowledge all senior managers present in this platform. We have recently engaged the senior management of Stats SA and are quite content with their continued and sterling work to collect, produce, and disseminate official and other statistics, including the conducting of a census of the population. The release of the census report, which should be undertaken in the next month, will serve as a new national information baseline, as the census data is the denominator for all other data. Stats SA has scheduled more than 280 statistical releases for 2023-2024, more than usual. And this is a consequence of thematic reports on the census. As you are quite aware, the reality of the matter is that an amendment bill has been submitted for processing in Parliament. Stats SA is awaiting feedback on this process, whether it will be finalized this year or next year. Our role is to inter alia monitor the performance of the Head of Statistics South Africa, approve or disapprove the inception, variation, or discontinuance of statistical collection by a minister or an organ of state other than Statistics South Africa, as provided for in Section 14, subsection 1 and 2 of Statistics Act. We are also expected, following consultation with the Cabinet, to appoint members of the Stats Council, as provided in Section 8, subsection 3 of the Stats Act. This process will commence in earnest in due course so that the new council assumes its responsibility beyond the release of the census report. This work program promises the long-awaited release of Census 2022 results, which is scheduled for mid-2023. The census is also a critical source of small area data to inform planning and decision-making at local level. We are profoundly encouraged by the sterling work undertaken by Stats SA, especially during the census operations. Our National Statistics Agency continues to operate as an independent and impartial institution. We therefore, through your permission, Chair, call on the Head of Statistics South Africa to present our annual performance plan.
No, thank you very much, Honorable DM. I'm sorry, as honorable members, we learn this reconfiguration as we move forward. We are used to Stats SA and Brand SA under DPME. So now that there are changes, we must learn from time to time. Thank you very much, and over to you, SG.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me thank you indeed, and thank members of the Portfolio Committee, but also acknowledge Minister Ramokgopa, as well as deputy ministers, and the input that was given by Deputy Minister Kenny Mogolong, as well as indeed the presence of Deputy Minister Kekana and Deputy Minister Mutau. Let me also acknowledge other colleagues, as well as of course, colleagues that are coming with me from Stats SA. Chair, we want to talk about the work program of Stats SA for the 2023-2024 financial year. We are going to start with the strategic overview, the work program, the risk and priorities. Chairperson, when we were sending the slides, there were slides on the finance that we hadn't included, which we have now included, because we're trying to understand from our colleagues from the Department of, from National Treasury, in terms of the implications of the wage negotiations and the implementations of such in terms of our budgets, but we realize that this doesn't affect us alone. So in this presentation, we will also raise issues of the finance, but let us look at a strategic overview for starters. And as we do so, we have always indicated that the vision of Stats SA is to improve lives through data ecosystems in such a manner, Chair, that data ecosystems go beyond the value chain of official statistics for which Stats SA has control and responsibility, because the statistician general has a responsibility for official statistics as well as other statistics in such a manner that from time to time we graduate statistics into official. Our mission is to continue to transform the production, coordination and use of statistics through optimization, largely of our resources, innovation and partnerships. But as we do so, our strategic themes are insightful data, agile operating model, interconnected statistical systems, and transformed capabilities. And in this regard, what are we going to do in each of the focus areas? In insightful data, we have throughout time committed that will sustain the quality of national indicators. And this we have done so even during difficult times that we're facing coming out of 2016 to the year 2020, where we had no cent increase on our budget. We managed to safeguard national indicators through their quality. We'll explore the use of alternative data sources as well as innovate on interactive dissemination platforms. While, of course, an agile operating model will reposition and strengthen the methodology function of Stats SA and beyond to serve the data ecosystems that we will be harvesting data from. We will modernize and innovate business processes as well as innovate the statistical business and geographic frames. Geographic frames become very critical, Chair, especially in terms of our censuses as well as our sample surveys, that we need to know at what levels of geography we collect our data and at what levels we report. In terms of interconnected statistical systems, we'll develop a digital business transformation strategy and make sure that we institutionalize the South African Statistical Quality Assessment Framework self-assessment. In terms of transformed capabilities, we'll invest in innovative technologies and ICT infrastructure, as well as continue to align our structure, skills, and resources to the strategy of Stats SA and make sure that we redeploy staff members accordingly in terms of positioning their capabilities to support the data ecosystems. And that is the work beyond Stats SA. So in terms of our work, the work program, we will start with economic statistics. Of course, we will publish, firstly is that we have planned about 230 statistical releases for the financial year. In saying so, Chair, it's in line with what Deputy Minister Morolong has indicated, that we have increased our outputs for this year from the usual 250, 260 to about 280, so that we can use the census as the census results come out to come up with thematic reports. But specifically in economic statistics, we'll publish an updated PPI weights and we'll make sure that the capital expenditure survey statistical release is published quarterly. We will have a research report to expand the coverage of natural capital account series. This is very critical, Chair, because if the national capital accounts series, because if we look at the South African landmass, the levels of the biodiversity that is there, as well as the water levels and water harvesting from different geographic levels and topographies of the country, it becomes very critical that we continue to monitor this, including the moving in and moving out of the mineral resources that we have. So the natural capital account series becomes very critical. What are the innovations that we're talking about here? We will have the experimental residential property price indices to be published monthly. We will research and continue on the use of administrative data in terms of to supplement our annual financial statistics. We will test the inclusion of the TVET institutions in the higher education institutions release. This becomes very critical for long-term planning, Chair. But let us look at population and social statistics. What are the highlights? We will release the census results as of 2022 in July. This is the tentative date, Chairperson, that we have put in our work program, because we have to put tentative dates, but there are things that we must meet in terms of the release of census results. One is that the statistician general must be satisfied with the work of the that comes of the main census, as well as the work that comes of the post-enumeration survey, which we use as a quality control, but also to help us on people we may have counted more than once, or to come up with what we call an undercount, the people we have missed in the census for purposes of adjustments. That is number one. Number two is that council, which is independent of Stats SA and independent of government, which comprises members of the public, from the academia, from organized labor and business in their different levels of skills, has to be satisfied and has to issue a statement to South Africans in terms of indicating what are the indicators in the census that we have had best coverage, limited coverage, and the like. And once this is satisfied, then we have to work with our minister to consult the president on the day he may officiate at the release. The release still remains the remit of the statistician general, and the president only issues a statement, and the statistician general releases the numbers. And there's still no precise check in that even the census, as huge as it is, when council and the statistician general and minister go and brief the president, they don't talk of the numbers, nor council and stats say go to meet the minister and deputy minister. We don't talk of the numbers. We talk of the veracity. The release is equal to everyone on the day that the statistician general will release the census results. What are other highlights? We will finalize data collection for the income and expenditure survey in the third quarter. As we have indicated last year, that we started as of November last year, the income and expenditure survey that will help us deal with matters of poverty or understanding poverty, which we haven't measured since 2015. Field work will conclude end of this year, that is the third financial quarter. And of course, the results will come out in the year 2024. We will, of course, continue to report on documented immigrants. And of course, there will be thematic reports based on the census in areas of education, child statistics, gender, people with disabilities, marginalized groups, and of course, household services. What are the innovations? Before I come to innovations, we will have 53 statistical releases. And of course, in the innovations, we will continue to research on alternative data sources in as much as we do in the previous slide in economic statistics. The data sources are different and we have to research them, of course, separately. There will be engagements on external data sources for the integrated indicator framework reporting, for which our colleagues at DPME have already touched on this matter for purposes of planning, long-term planning for our country. In the national statistics system, the major issue is the amendment bill, which is ready for tabling to Parliament, having gone through Parliament, through cabinet, so to say. This year is a year through which we have to report at the United Nations General Assembly on our SDG country report. We were supposed to report previously as of 2021, but because of COVID and last year, because we had a census coming, we have decided to go and report this year, and work is ongoing. The integrated indicator framework, which includes 88 indicators for district development model, is one of the issues that we will be looking at going forward. This, of course, is also dependent on the results that we will release of the census, because then going forward in terms of our sampling surveys, we will need to make sure that our sampling surveys include the ability to report at district level. We will develop a data source inventory system. And of course, in innovations, the South African Statistical Quality Assessment Framework. In the past, we used to have data sent to us and we would deal with issues of assessment. We want to institutionalize the self-assessment portal and provide training to other producers as well as users of statistics. And of course, the South African Statistical Quality Assessment Framework, we will need to have that for administrative data. In this regard, for example, a municipality could be producing data, which is not their main function. Their main function is to provide services. Data is a byproduct, like it is for a nurse sitting at a clinic, or it is for attendance registers of school children. Statistics is just their byproduct. But as that happens, we will make sure that such administrative data goes through the South African Statistical Quality Assessment Framework and it will in time form part of that self-assessment portal so that we can harness outside our traditional data collection sources. We will have an online metadata repository for indicators going forward. This will help us a lot because as people use data, they need to know the information surrounding such variables and such data. On statistical operations and support, the highlights is that we will deal with the dissemination of census results. Once we have done the national launch, we'll deal with provincial and local level. We will test the integrated operations model in the provinces to streamline field operations, which becomes or remains one of our footprints in terms of reaching out to every member out there in the society. And where we can't reach to everyone, our sample surveys reach a representative sample of members of our society. We will revamp the website and enhance further functionality in terms of our website. And of course, as we do so, innovations will implement an enterprise architecture platform, which will include the digital roadmap. And going forward, we will implement the mixed mode household survey going forward. Members of the portfolio committee will remember that when we conducted the census, we had 3 modes. One, which was our field workers going with the tablets to capture information, face-to-face interviews. We had telephone activated interviews. We also had web activated interviews. And this mixed mode approach needs to be taken forward so that it can actually cut down on the amounts that we spend out there. Methodology and standards. In terms of methodology and standards, we'll research the design of a new master sample, which of course will be very critical coming out with the census results for census 2022, because the master sample benefits a lot from every now and then we run a census. We will adopt international classification on harmonized systems, that is Harmonized Systems 2022. We will monitor and evaluate the work that we do in terms of improving on quality management systems. And in terms of innovations, we will make sure that we report on additional sources for updating the Statistical Business Register in collaboration with the South African Revenue Services. This becomes very critical, especially for our economic statistics chairperson, when we do our reporting monthlies and quarterly. We will have a geoportal for dissemination of statistical products so that we can link our products to geography at all times. In terms of administration, what are we going to do? Highlights. We will develop a digital business transformation strategy and make sure that we implement the skills development strategy and go forward and conduct impact analysis for disaster recovery. And of course, let me mention that in terms of our work, it's business as usual, as there are no additional funds received in terms of ENE. In terms of innovations, we will make sure that we institutionalize the business process management, mapping and management, and we'll deal with innovations in relation to management, information systems. And of course, we will continue to assess the office accommodation at national, provincial, and district level. Because with technology, we don't believe that we need to be in every district, but we can collect in every district from anywhere. As technology advances, we can have our field workers being managed from anywhere. So we need to review our footprint to make sure that it costs us less in terms of the work that we do. In terms of estimates of national expenditure, we are saying that there's additional funding required for the negotiated salary increases, because these ones are going to deplete the allocations that we have. Our vacancy rate are not fully funded, sitting at 19.6%. So what we do is every now and then between ourselves, DPSA and National Treasury, we work on the structure of Stats SA. National Treasury then comes to fund us, but sometimes they don't fund all the structure. But as our vacancy rate increases, some of the positions are not funded. But this additional funding that is required for negotiated salary increases is going to throw us back to the wall in terms of the funding that we have. As regards the distribution of our allocation, 61% goes to compensation of employees, goods and services, 27%, capital assets, 12%, and the others in terms of transfers and subsidies remain negligible. In terms of risks and priorities, Chair, we are saying that demand is trumping supply. And as it trumps supply, we are having ways in which we'll mitigate this. One is that the census will provide a baseline for statistical information system for our country, and will also invest in strategic partnerships. But in terms of supply, we have discontinued certain surveys to release the pressure that we were facing in terms of our finances. But as we do so, there are some that we need and we have to prioritize. For example, the income and expenditure survey that helps us deal with issues of poverty and inequality. And as we go forward, we will continue with various thematic reports coming out of the census, which we believe will help us, Chairperson, going forward in terms of the need for planning in our country. We will also continue to research on alternative data sources to supplement the supply of statistics. But going forward, in terms of our business operating model, we are saying that we continue to be disrupted by factors that relate to issues of external as well as internal environment. In terms of internal environment, it's our outdated frames that the census 2022 will help us a lot. But in terms of external challenges, issues of electricity crisis have a lot of disruptions in terms of our work that we do. How do we mitigate for that? We will modernize the statistical value chain and make sure that we use alternative data sources where we cannot have data out of our traditional methods. Now, going forward, Chairperson, in terms of resources, we have a high vacancy rate, as I've indicated, that in terms of the funding that we get from National Treasury, it's not enough for our vacancy rate. So what we do in terms of that, we will continue to reprioritize in terms of filling of critical positions. But we also have limited funding for our strategy. And in this regard, reprioritization will help us a lot, but continuing to develop our skills will remain critical so that we can meet and protect critical indicators for the nation. The next slide, Chairperson, which is our traditional one, that talks about our 5-year strategy, which we will conclude in 24-25. We have, even in our quarterly reporting, always brought this slide for the portfolio committee to say we will drive legislative reform. Once Parliament has processed it and it has been, amendments have been signed off, we have to implement it. We will sustain and protect the quality of national indicators, Chairperson, which are needed for planning, both in short term, medium and long term. We will drive business transformation and change to make sure that Stats SA remains relevant in terms of going forward. The slide that follows, Chairperson, says Ndihela Kwala, but I need to contextualize it, Chairperson, in quick order. In that when I was young, growing up in the village, we used to write letters for our mothers and to our fathers who were working in urban centers, who were migrant laborers in urban centers. Our mothers, chairperson, could not read and write. And because our mothers could not read and write, chairperson, they could not end a letter with, I love you or I miss you, my husband, because such statements were not supposed to be heard by children who were their scribes. According to village legend, the children would go deaf if they heard those words. If they wrote those words down as in children, ourselves as their scribes, we would go blind according to village legend. So our mothers and fathers had to find a way of concluding the letters they write to each other in a standard way that which in Sepedi and Setswana, in Sesotho sa Borwa, ka ditumediso na wa tsena. In isiZulu, angna maningi or amaningi angnawo. In isiXhosa, they would say, ngiceda khona apha ngomkhulu umbuliso. In English and Afrikaans, chairperson, it's finished and clear. The next slide is blank, I promise you, chairperson.
No, thank you very much, SG Rekensil. Now, we had all our presentations and also inputs from the political heads. Then I will take questions, and I can't see all the hands, honorable members. Okay, I will start with Honorable Ntuli, and then followed by Honorable Jenan, then Honorable Maneli, and Honorable Kibi. Honorable Ntuli.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson? Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, Honorable Ntuli, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. And one would like to welcome all the presentations, including the overviews by the ministers and the deputy ministers. Chair, safe to say, these presentations are so informative, and they are giving us, as this portfolio committee, they are giving us as this portfolio committee, they're really a weapon and equipping us for our oversight processes. But Chair, let me ask, let me start with the DPME. My question for DPME is, one, the performance indicators of the department are largely having reports as indicators of whether the department has performed on a particular area or not. But the challenge is that such indicators do not reflect the actual outcomes of the work the department undertakes. How is the DPME going to plan in future to ensure that it develops outcome indicators? For example, the APP has a target of a report on the presidential hotline, but what is critical to measure performance is the functionality of the presidential hotline. Therefore, the targets should, for example, be ensure 90% of reported matters are resolved by responsible departments or processed by the DPME to reflect the level of performance. Number two, Chair, what tools and measurements will the department use to assess socio-economic impact analysis of the district development model? And what performance areas does the department have to ensure one plan, one budget, one district principle of the DGM? For sure, we all agree that DGM is a very strong tool for our government sort of to touch the ground. Chair, if I may move on to Brand SA. Chairperson, to our country, because
sorry, Honorable Ntuli, can you repeat the question because we have missed you?
The one for the DPME. Hello, Chair, can you hear me?
The next Atlantic presentation.
The next presentation is Brand SA.
Yes, repeat that.
Can I then start with the Brand SA?
Yes.
Yes, what I was still saying, Chairperson, I was commending the Brand SA for the pivotal role that are playing in terms of marketing the country and also bringing the alerts even to the country as to how we can as a country go about global. You know, Chair, in the meeting, there are so many stigmas. It was much better. I'm not saying it was good, but it was much better because COVID was global. But if COVID was only in South Africa, you would feel the pinch that you have got COVID in our country. I'm therefore commending the work that is being done by Brand SA, but nevertheless, let me ask the question. My question to them is, which aspect of perception change is prioritized in the implementation of global South Africans activities and the promote active citizenry through the Play Your Part program? Understanding that Brand SA is really focusing on Play Your Part and is also trying to familiarize Play Your Part as much as they can. Thank you, Chair. That was Brand SA. Let me then move to State SA. State SA, thank you so much for your work, for the job well done, particularly during the COVID, which was so unpredicted, and yet you were supposed to go on the ground. Let me ask the question, Chair, from Brand SA. My question is, the Minister outlined the importance of impact of government programs and that the DPME should be primarily focused in driving impact. How can that South Africa expand its offering to the public service through producing key statistics on priority programs of government to ascertain the impact of government in its thematic report to enable a linkage of funds spent and the impact, in essence, the quality of expenditure? Thank you very much, Chairperson. That is my take so far.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Ntuli, Honorable Notnachal.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to everybody in the meeting. My first question I would like to ask is the performance management agreements are critical and the PMDS of accounting officers is important in relation to the leadership of the administration. What interventions are taken on the basis of PMDS reports? My next question to Brand South Africa will be the following. All spheres of government and private partners have a role in promoting the image of the country globally in the various sectors they operate in. How does the entity ensure that institutionalizes promoting and align nation brand execution and experience internationally and domestically as a critical component of the work of state organs and private entities? Then a question to Statistics South Africa. Noting that the demand for Stats South Africa outweighs supply, how is the entity leveraging technology to improve its capacity? And lastly, what is the impact of underfunding Stats SA for monitoring and evaluation by the presidency and the provision of vast and quality statistics for the country and the world? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Notnachal, and then Honorable Maneli.
Thank you, Chair, and good day to everyone. Let's also welcome and appreciate all the presentations, Chairperson. I've got a number of questions, starting with Brand SA, Chair. We're noting that the digitization and the rise of social media platform is a critical in promoting South Africa. So what is the digital strategy and plan of Brand SA? And what key activities and targets are set for the current year? Also, Chair, whilst on Brand SA, I'm noting that it's critical in various sectors to leverage popular brands to promote our country. So what is the approach and plan of it in this regard? Coming to Stats SA, Chair, there's big data, which is critical for decision making. So also, what is the plan to expand its big data capacity to enhance state information for decision making? And can also be told if they think that government leverage Stats SA adequately, and what is the plan of the entity to ensure that its reports are utilized optimally by the state organs? Chair, coming to DPME, we're noting that weaknesses in planning requires training and the empowerment of the department to intervene in evaluating all indicators developed. What training or targets of capacitation does the department drive? And does the department have adequate capacity to analyze and provide sufficient feedback to organs of state during planning? My last question, Chair, will be that the DPME has an important role to play through producing reports which will enable intervention by various state organs and the presidents. What performance indicator or monitoring targets does the DPME have to monitor the implementation of its own recommendations and matters for intervention by the president or cabinet? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maneli. Honorable Kibi, I think that will be the last hand, honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the Minister, the Deputy Ministers, honorable members and colleagues. Honorable Chair, let me join you and the colleagues in welcoming the Minister on her first meeting with this portfolio committee and all the other honorable members. Honorable Chair, let me start with DPME. The Auditor General has identified various planning weaknesses, such as poor performance indicators in local government and in the provincial and national government, which results in an inability to monitor the actual performance of programs and their impact. As part of institutionalizing planning, what plan is in place to remedy the problem, and what is the performance target to improve performance information? And my second question, Honorable Chair, still to DPME, measuring the progress implementation of the medium-term strategic framework is critical, Honorable Chair. What performance measurement does the DPME have to ensure all MTSF targets are included in department annual performance plan? Those are my questions for EDPME. Moving to Brand SA. Honorable Chair, perceptions are critical, and Brand SA has outlined the positives and negatives from the studies it undertakes. What are the actual measurable shifts that Brand SA is targeting in the current financial year, recognizing that the perception data the Brands SA has should ground its strategy? That is the only question that I have for Brand SA. Moving to States SA, Honorable Chair, to the Prince, to Ndade SG. My first one, Honorable Chair, is on one of the critical weaknesses of local government and provinces is poor social and economic data profiling, which is critical for the district development model. What is the plan of States SA to develop key statistics which should enable strategic planning within the DDM approach? How will the integrated indicator framework, 88 indicators for district development model, enable this object, Honorable Chair? My last question to you, States SA, is government reporting is largely output based with a less measurement of the outcomes and impacts of the department's mandate. How can Statistics South Africa contribute in ensuring government develops measurable indicators to ensure quality information for intervention? I thank you, Honorable Chair. Those are my questions.
No, thank you very much, honorable members. I think I've got only one question for Brand SA, and obvious DMs are here in the presidents. Our interest also is only to understand the progress report regarding the merger of the Brand SA and also tourism as they respond. I think I wish that they also speak about the progress report in the merger of Brand SA and also tourism, because I know that in the previous portfolio committees in 2022, 2021, and 2020, we were always asking for the progress report. So if also they can brief us what is the status in 2023. Thank you very much. And then I will give the first. I will start with Brand SA, and immediately after they've responded, I will give the minister, the deputy minister, if she want to say something, and then I will give Stats SA to respond to questions, and then after that, I will also give the Deputy Minister Morolong, and then lastly will be then the DPME. They will respond, and then also after the Honorable Minister will take over. Thank you very much. We'll start with Brand SA. Brand SA.
Thank you, Chairperson. In responding, myself, I will cover some of the questions, and my colleague, Ms. Mpumi, through you, Chair, will answer. A question from Honorable Ntuli spoke to which aspects of reputation that we target as Brand South Africa, specifically with the GSA, the Global South Africans, as well as the Play Your Part program. The reputation pillar that we are targeting is that one that speaks to advocacy. Advocacy speaks to the level of people that are positively communicating and influencing the narrative of South Africa. So in that hexagon, the 6-pillar hexagon that are profiled, what you will see is that the pillar of people is the one that is largely shaping the Global South Africans as well as the Play Your Part program. Because in the Play Your Part, as I said, we work with ambassadors, as Mpumi Mabuza said, and these ambassadors are spread amongst the pillars of this hexagon. Some are specializing in the science and technology area, some are more on the creative art space, whilst others are in sports. And ours is to coordinate programs that are formal, which includes even developing messages and toolkits and design work when they go and they go abroad. So that is what we are shaping. And with Play Your Part, we are also shaping active citizenship from an inward perspective, in that we are inculcating a culture of entrepreneurs, a self-reliant culture. As you would have seen in one of the indices and the reports that we track, it's the reports from the World Bank, and it told us that South Africa has to be one of those economies that learns to be self-sufficient, and entrepreneurship is going to be our beacon of hope. That is where we then link our Play Your Part program specifically to encourage citizens to start doing something on their own from an entrepreneurial, so that they contribute to a positive social change. So that answers that question. The second question that I would like to respond to, which is almost similar, is the one from Honorable Kibi, which speaks to which measurable shifts in this fiscal that we are going to focus on when we speak from a nation brand reputation. There is a slide, Honorable Kibi, that I showed that speaks to the top of mind associations of our country, and it still speaks to wildlife and animals. And we as Brand South Africa are saying that those are the shifts we want to target. We want to see associations that are driven largely from an innovation perspective, from a service industry, whether it's in the hotel or it's in the financial sector, or stability of our banks. But definitely we are now moving from the old associations by penetrating spaces and using new messages, new news, and new voices that are quite diverse. So that is our strategy aggressively that we are going to start, which means perhaps in the next 1-2 years, because in the space that we play in, consistency is key. And we did say even financial budget, as in the muscle is also key, because a consistent and a rigorous share of voice is going to be won with visibility that is always on and is aggressive. And we know we are fighting with the giants that have huge budgets, which is why our partners that we work with are helping us to shape these associations when we partner with private sector, for instance, and the people that are leaving this country on an individual basis. We partner with them so that at least they carry the message of the country in our absence. And then I'll leave the other questions for my colleague through you, Chair, Ms. Mabuza, to then attend to those. Thank you, Chair.
So thank you, Acting CEO. I'll start with the question from Honorable Notnagel in terms of the role that we play in pursuing an alignment in the communication and of the nation brand that's focusing on program 3. From our side, Honorable Member, we have a program that is geared towards training national government departments and entities that are essentially flag carriers. Any type of government department or entity that does some type of promotion of the country abroad, especially we target to give them training under the banner of the Nation Brand Masterclass, which is a training course that we have developed, and we've been continuously training, whether it's provincial investment tourism entities we take them through the masterclass. It teaches those stakeholders nuances around the promotion of the nation brand. It also provides them with tools that they can use in projecting the country from a messaging perspective, as well as visually. The toolkit is available. I was actually happy to see recently an article on CNN that has accessed and credited Brand South Africa Toolkit in terms of the images that they used for the article on South Africa. So that resource is available to entities, but then also we proactively target them and we give them the training to try and manage this and ensure that there is some level of alignment. And then Honorable Maneli asked the questions around our social media platforms and the social media program. I'll start with that question. Brand South Africa focuses on positive South African stories to bolster the image of the country, as well as to encourage pride and patriotism when it comes to the organization's digital program. So this is the core of the digital strategy. The social media is one of Brand South Africa's strongest content marketing opportunities. We are quite aware of that. And then that is, as you mentioned, a clear global trend. Media consumptions also are continuing to shift more towards digital platforms. And then we also, on our side, have a clear understanding in terms of the fastest growing social media platforms. We understand and are using more, not just Twitter, but we are also quite active on LinkedIn. There's certain audiences that consume content purely on such platforms, or whether even if it's TikTok, which is growing phenomenally across the globe. And then also we have dissected even the South African audiences in terms of what type of social media or digital program or platform that they prefer to use, and we've got a clear understanding of that. That's our digital landscape has been spread. We are not we have looked at improving the website itself and our website responsiveness. We are using, as I mentioned, LinkedIn, Twitter, your Facebook, but also we have some paid advertising and relevant analytics to ensure that we reach the audiences through the paid digital advertising that we use. So we do have a comprehensive digital strategy. We are trying to also focus primarily this year on the engagement levels. We do have a decent following in terms of numbers on some of the key platforms that we've grown over the years. However, we also want to ensure that our audiences engage more with the content, communicate back, and also share the content wider through their own networks. In terms of the second question that you raised, and the use of popular brands, definitely, this is in line with the strategy that we have at Brand South Africa. We do target, for example, multinational, South African multinationals, even global ones that have established in South Africa, so that they can be advocates of the process of investing in South Africa. We have in the past run a campaign called CEOs No, and we had the heads of various multinationals telling their own story in terms of what they experience in investing in South Africa, they experience in even relocating to their countries with their families, and a positive story. And we find that other businesses or companies appreciate that information a bit more when it comes from a source of that nature. So we do target popular brands on the ground. As part of some of our civil society program, we will work with certain commercial brands, for instance, on the part, but also on a global space, we do target and try and work with those companies that have got a global image and are linked and affiliated in some way to South Africa. I will ask CEO and Chairperson, perhaps if we can get, we can ask the Deputy Minister to respond to the question regarding the merger. From our side, we haven't moved much further from the last portfolio committee that we engaged on, and we have nothing specific that we can share from the entity perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. I've aligned with the DM in that, as Ms. Mabuza is saying, we've engaged the new minister, Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, and then her views was that she just needs to apply her mind as she's new now in the portfolio, but based on what the former minister has views, in the sense that he understood the role of Brand South Africa to be peculiar, in that it's not sector focused and it's more broader than the sector, and as such needed more time to see why would a measure, then how would this envisaged measure could work. So that is where the things are currently at. But I know that it's one of the matters together with the board that is being expedited by the new minister together with the DM. So I'm hoping that at the next portfolio committee meeting, we'll have a full briefing on these two components. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much. Stats SA.
Thank you indeed, Chairperson. The question from Honorable Ntuli on the support or the work of measuring impact, especially of expenditure from the side of government, I would like to combine that question with the reporting of output and outcomes that was raised by Honorable Kibi. And in the role of the work of Stats SA on outcomes and impact. In that, firstly, is that we produce data as Stats SA, and in producing data, Chairperson, we have to, in our independence, we cannot get into the policy space, number one. Number two is that we cannot produce data solely for purposes of incentives or punitive measures that may be taken if programs are not performing, because then that would compromise our independence. Having said so, certainly as Honorable Ntuli and Honorable Kibi raised, there is a critical role for Stats SA in that, one, the integrated indicator framework that we and DPME and then the National Planning Commission continuously work on, comes out with the key indicators that the country needs. For example, on economic growth, for example, on issues of the unemployment rate. We will remember one of the things that we had said way back in 2011, 2012, was that by 2020, the country would like to see the unemployment sitting at 14%. That was a key planning statement in our NDP. And by 2030, unemployment should be sitting at 6%. But Stats SA has consistently every quarter reported that our unemployment is actually sitting as of now about in the excess of 30%. So that is a critical outcomes issue that we are measuring to know what government programs and beyond, including private sector, if they are working or not working. As to the impact of policies, if the policies that were being implemented to curb unemployment were effective, our unemployment by the year 2020 would have come to 14% or closer to 14%. The fact that it is double shows that something is not working out there. So that's what Stats SA can independently report at all times while staying outside the policy space. Specifically to Honorable Ntuli, as regards the impact of expenditure that government is deploying. Certainly, once we have released our indicators, DPME and the National Treasury should then, in review of the expenditure, and I know they sit together in the budget committees, in the expenditure reviews, to look if the money that is being pumped and the expenditures correlate, whether be it in education or health, correlate with the outcomes and the impact that we are seeing, while Stats SA will continue to report. As regards the question by Honorable North Nahal in relation to the demand and the deployment of technology, and of course, the issue of the underfunding of Stats SA, the one thing that one would say is that in terms of deployment of technology, we are in the space as we are talking now, looking at different avenues. And I would like to combine this point, Chair, with the one that was raised by Honorable Kibi as well, in terms of the work of Stats SA in relation to the DDM. The one of the issues is that we're emphasizing the use of technology in our surveys so that we can deal with the modernization of our data collection for both population and social statistics, as well as our economic statistics. And as we do so in deploying technology, we need to bring another element which we could not bring coming out of Census 2011, because as of Census 2011, the DDM was not in. In terms of the results that will be coming out of Census 2022, when we come up with our master sample, or our sampling frame, so to say, we will sample in such a way that we use a reference of the district for being able to report. At previous levels, the DDM was not a focus area that government was raising. And our sampling coming out of 2011 in our sample surveys, especially in our population and social statistics, is not adequately positioned to report on that. So the deployment of technology plus available data that will come from Census 2022 will help us. In terms of underfunding of Stats SA, certainly Deputy Minister indicated to me that in his conclusion, he would like to deal with this issue of underfunding, Honorable North Nahale. So I will leave it for Deputy Minister to conclude on that matter. Honorable Maneli, on the plans for big data, one of the things that we are doing in terms of our work that we are doing is that we are talking about data ecosystems. The Statistician General indeed, and Stats SA is responsible for official and other statistics. But such data comes from different ecosystems, which may occur and sit in organs of the state, as well as sitting in the private sector. One of the things is that this issue of the amendment bill that we are talking about will help us a lot in harvesting such data, including data outside our traditional methods. A good example is the whole issue of the deeds office data that we need in terms of supplementing our surveys that we will be and we are engaging with the deeds office in terms of going forward. But not only that, there are issues of moving away from paper. Our CPI, for example, we are moving away from paper. In terms of our census, we are moving away from paper. This was the first digital census, which would help us build in that rubric of the big data. But it's not enough. In our amendment bill, we should be able to get data that is sitting in the private sector, because you could have a private company that will close shop for whatever reason, and they are sitting with data which they are protecting for their competitive reasons. But such data, we should be able to acquire as Stats SA for purposes of national planning, whereas we protect the issues of identity of their respondents, a matter that we have also dealt with the national regulator, information regulator, in terms of our handling, where they are saying we are in full compliance of the work of protecting personal information in our country. But it's not personal information we're talking about. It's information in the whole social space, as well as in the whole economic space of our country. Honorable Maneli also asked the question, do we think our products are adequately used by government? I would say that certainly our data is not adequately, our products are not adequately used, not only by government, but by the entire nation, including business. There are times, Chair, we release our data, we have done, we are reaching out with media houses. Every now and then we release key indicators like the economic data, population media estimates, and population-related data, as well as issues of employment, unemployment. We make sure that we work with media houses on the days of our releases. We even call them in and sit with them about 30 minutes upfront, up to an hour sometimes, briefing them with embargoes upheld, so that by the time we release at the time allocated for that release, they are able to flood the media space, be it print or electronic media. We also present to different fora, organs of the state. We present to cabinet, to different legislatures, as well as sittings and executives in the provinces, districts, and municipalities. We also present to portfolio committees of different portfolio committees of parliament. One of the things we have agreed, Chair, was that one time Stats SA should be invited by this portfolio committee, not to talk about our program, but to talk about the products of Stats SA that should be used for planning and that should be deployed by different, be used by different committees. We do that, but we still realize that the use of data is not yet sufficient in our nation. There are times that even when plans are made there, including by government departments at times, that official statistics are there, but they are not used. DPME enforces the use of official statistics in their planning and in their monitoring and evaluation. But sometimes it's not enough, Chair. The amendment bill will assist us in terms of harvesting data, but we will use it also to enforce a level of use of data in the same way that in the PFMA is used particularly and has to be adhered even up to an audit function. We don't think audit function is our work, as Stats SA, but enforcing the use of statistics all goes two ways, from ourselves as the producers, and not only Stats SA, as all producers of official and other statistics, as well as the users of statistics. Thank you, Chair. And let me remind Chair that the Chair had said Deputy Minister would come after the Statistician General.
Yes, SG, Honorable Deputy Minister Morolo.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much to the SG. I think we all agree that underfunding of data needs remains a thorny issue. You know, Chair, the collection, production, and dissemination of statistical data has always been timeless and qualitative, notwithstanding the challenges of underfunding. The vacancy rate stands at 19%, and 19% is quite a significant number given the enormity of the mandate of Stats SA. So the challenges of adequate funding will inevitably, in the long term, militate against Stats SA and its ability to produce data in the long term. The reality is that if data needs are not adequately funded, Stats SA is unable to plan properly, especially in the long term. So the need for us to continuously engage Treasury on this matter cannot be overemphasized. This government, Chairperson, will continue to protect the independence of Stats SA because Stats SA is a critical instrument to advise us where we're doing well and, you know, with respect to where progress is lagging. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable GM and DPME.
Okay, thanks once again, Chair. I understand I will go through a number of questions and provide answers before I hand over to the Minister and DM to deal with their political level issues. Just very quickly on the issues raised by Honorable Ntuli. Let me quickly start with planning, say something on planning. What we do, we ask departments to develop strategies and that the focus of the strategies should be on outcomes. And when we receive the draft, we feed back to the departments on what is required. Now, the challenge is, after all this work that we do as the PME to scrutinize the plans of departments, the departments then go and engage with their political principles. And what comes to Parliament will be what they would discuss with their political principles. So what the ministers in this case. So what we're trying to do now is to also ask for the intervention of the minister by ensuring that once we have done our work as DPME, Parliament is also aware of what it is that DPME has recommended to offset a situation whereby we do everything as DPME, feedback on strategies and plans, but what comes to Parliament is something else that would not have signed on, would not have seen. So we want to close that void so that we can provide a foolproof accountability of the entire value chain when we are asked questions by Parliament on the quality of what it is that the departments are doing. So that's the first issue in planning. The second issue in planning is with regard to the alignment between budget and planning. There is still a disjuncture between what Treasury will do and what we do. On our side, we have attempted to intervene by introducing what was referred to earlier on as the budget prioritization framework, which we present to Treasury and other departments which sit in the budget committees. So this is to ensure that when Treasury plans the budget, it is guided by the work that we are doing as the PME based on our analysis of what Stats SA would have produced and all other variables and data sets that we have. Now, this is another matter that we are bringing before the minister, so that the Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation and the Minister of Finance can find each other on the management of this alignment between the two departments. It's a very big issue. when there is limited alignment between the two. Then with respect to the reports, in our APP, we say that we are going to produce a number of reports. Now, some of these reports is difficult to see or to know what it is that we are going to recommend at the end, because it will depend on the things that we find in the course of our own analysis, on our own assessment. So whilst the point about impact is being raised, the difficulty will be in instances where at the time of planning, we don't know what we'll find, but make recommendations to the relevant entities. So when we come up with our reports, the reports go to the relevant entities, including a cabinet, with very clear recommendations. Now, the second question arises as to, after having presented to cabinet and parliament, how do you follow up to ensure that your recommendations are implemented? We have attempted to do this by way of proposing how clusters of government must function. And I think we presented this at one point here in the portfolio committee. Our own concerns about the way government clusters are functioning. In the main, they function to process CAB memos and not discuss strategic issues. So the function of the presidency is to make sure that all these outstanding issues are sent back to the clusters, so that clusters can discuss strategic issues and not be administrative and merely focus on a processing a CAB memos. So we have started that process working with the DG in the presidency, and this obviously will need a ministerial intervention so that it's not only at the DG level where we discuss strategic issues, but also ministers, clusters do meet and discuss strategic issues. Very quickly on the DDM, we have done some work on coordination. As the presidency, we focus more on ensuring that there is effective coordination, particularly in relation to what we do and what DCOG does, the Department of Cooperative E-Governance. So this is work in progress so that there is clarity on what the presidency does and what DCOG does. But we are aware through that collaboration on some of the challenges that need to be attended to ensure that the district development model is functional. One of the challenges that we have picked up is that metros are not enthusiastic in participating in the DDM. So, and we can, together with DCOG, provide some details on this. It's a very serious issue of concern, given the role of metros. So we picked on that issue, and we are going to be attending to that. The other issue that we've picked up as a challenge is the participation of national departments in the DDM. There are 52 DDM spaces, and what we have seen is that departments nationally are saying that they are overstretched to be involved in all DDMs, in all the planning areas, 52 planning areas. Now we are dealing with that issue to then help departments to ensure that they can prioritize certain areas in a situation where it is clearly not possible for them to be everywhere at any given point. The other issue that we are looking at with respect to DDM is this issue of the different financial years for national and provincial on one side and local government on the other, to understand how that disjuncture, that their financial year start at the beginning of June and ours in April, how does that impact on this? So you will see that from the presidency side, we are focusing on very structural issues that are acting as gridlocks towards effective planning and implementation of the DDM, so that DCOG can focus on operational aspects of the district development model. So as Minister has indicated, this is definitely our priority to unlock such structural issues. On the question around PMDS, the point we made around improving performance management system, particularly that of DGs and HODs, we are concerned about the fact that the agreements are largely activity-based. There may be operational issues where sometimes you find that ministers have not signed the agreements, sometimes they've not assessed the DGs. Those are operational issues that we are also addressing. But the most important thing is the quality of the performance agreements of DGs. And I would request, Chair, that at some point ourselves and DPSA come back to the portfolio committee to take you through what we have found out in the course of doing our work in this area, so we can provide further details, because this is a very important issue. Then on the issues raised by Honorable Manedi with regard to capacity, I can raise the following points. One is that we work with the National School of Government. We have an MOU with them, wherein we design certain courses that relate to planning, so that they are offered through the National School of Government. For instance, now our current areas of interest will be on scenario planning and forecasting, where we found government generally to be weak, and we are working on that with the NSG and other external parties. The capacity of DPME and the National Planning Commission is a matter that deserves a focus. We have raised this with the minister in our initial engagements, that during COVID, we lost 29 funded positions. And now we are worried that if there are further budget cuts, we are going to grind to a halt as a DPME and the National Planning Commission. Now, this is very important considering that we don't outsource research work. So all the reports that we present here and elsewhere are done internally by ourselves. So we don't get money and then outsource, but we do work on our own, meaning that when there are budget cuts, what results is in a situation whereby we have to shrink the work that we're supposed to do. So this is a very important matter for us. I've dealt with the issue of how do we ensure that our recommendations are implemented. And just to emphasize, we use the clusters, but also to engage with the relevant departments and ministers. And in the last week or so, we have sent a cohort of reports to our minister that now require minister-level engagement with other ministers, so that we can unlock areas where there are gridlock, such as in public works, payment of social grants, the state-owned companies, and so forth. So those are the mechanisms that we have, and the minister and the presidency and the president have also instituted a mechanism that will allow us access on certain matters to brief the president, but the minister obviously is best placed to deal with that. Now, on the issues pertaining to the AGSA, and this is my last point, that we have taken note of the work of the AGSA, and the two parties have agreed to have regular engagements, that is DPME and the AGSA, to avoid a situation whereby departments get mixed signals from us and the AGSA. So there is work that we are doing to ensure that there is alignment in the kind of things that we expect from departments. But one issue that we picked up from the latest reports of the AGSA is the state of performance of the service delivery departments. We are really concerned about that situation. Now, the question is, what are we doing as DPME to intervene in that space where service delivery departments are involved? One, we just completed a deep dive analysis of the state of public works, which is a very key input even in the economy. That report has been completed. It has gone through the DGs, is now going to the two ministers to look at before we can proceed to cabinet. We are also doing some work with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to attempt some form of turnaround, so that we then develop internal government capacity to turn around state institutions whenever they are faced with challenges. So, Chair, we believe that this work that we're doing in public with respect to public works and justice will go a long way in giving us some kind of framework of how to intervene whenever the state entities that are involved in delivery are involved. The last one area that we're dealing with in this case is in relation to state-owned companies, that the bulk of the money that we have for programs for service delivery is always with state companies. Now, departments can have clean audits, but if state-owned companies are challenged, we will not be in a position to do what we're supposed to do. And in this regard, we have introduced a mechanism that we have given to the departments that exercise oversight on state-owned companies to comply with, so to use our template so that we can get very clear information on what it is that they are doing to ensure that state-owned companies are performing. On our own, Chair, lastly, we have just finalized our own report, which assesses governance and performance of the 20 or so Schedule 2 companies. These are the big companies, and that report will soon be available also to be presented here in Parliament so that you can also have a sense of what the issues are with respect to the performance and governance in state-owned companies. On that note, Chair, I'll ask to stop and hand over to you and the Minister to guide us on the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. I'm moving to the DM, Honorable Pinky Kekan, and then the Minister.
Thank you.
Person.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Just a short comment, and really appreciating the comments by members of the Portfolio Committee, and greetings to our Minister and all other DMs. Chair, I think one of the things that the observation that the committee has done is very critical. And the decision by the President to put this DPME as a standalone department, it's well informed. And I think, Minister, because I had an opportunity to sit with the Minister on what the vision is, Minister will also come back at some point after all other engagements are done to say, this is the route we're taking. Because planning has to be at the center. And what the DG has just picked up, if you look at what departments are doing, they plan separately, we consolidate. When we were supposed to be the planning department, and then say to Treasury, these are the priorities, and this is how you come with money to meet that. And that's the reason why we are unable to meet the NDP targets. Now, with what the Minister will be coming, and I'm not speaking on her behalf, but I know it's one of the things that she has put as a priority, that we must be able to have capacity to plan as South African government for everybody, and put it at the center of government planning, so that once we do that, when we monitor and evaluate, we'll then be able to see the impact. For now, even when we go to on the ground, whether it's for frontline monitoring and, we just tick in the boxes. We don't feel that trillion rand that Parliament is appropriated. And these are some of the things that, through what the Minister will be coming with, for grounding, planning at the center, and making sure that Treasury then follow what planning will be talking to, and not have business as usual. That's what we now have to do. And based on that, then you play oversight, which I cannot teach you, you know it better, to make sure that there is impact, because we have Status A with us. They tell us where the challenges are, but the budget does not speak to what Status A is speaking to. And that's why you have that high level of unemployment, high level of inequality, and so on. Because even if Status A says this, department respond differently. So that's why one of the reasons why President felt this department must be a standalone. Of course, it will have its own teething problems, but with the energy that our minister has, surely the tide will turn. Because we have only 7 years to meet the targets of the NDP. And with this going rate, we may not meet even half of some of the NDP targets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable DM. Honorable Minister, the floor is yours.
Is she cut off or is she on mute, Chair, or am I?
I suspect Honorable DM, she's not in the platform. I think, thank you very much with your closing remarks, Honorable DM. We are moving to the last item, but firstly, I think Honorable Mutsipe have sent questions for all the 3 presentations in the WhatsApp group of the Portfolio Committee. And I will request that Mercy send all the questions to all of you, and so that you then, give responses to Honorable Mutsipe. And secondly, I'm humbly requesting that honorable members, we convene on Friday, but Mercy will indicate whether tomorrow or Monday or Friday, so that we all adopt the presentations, the annual performance plans of both the presentation of yesterday and today, and be ready for debates next week. And lastly, thank you very much to all of you, the minister in her absentia, all the 3 DMs, Honorable Pinky Kekane, Honorable Mrono Lung, Honorable Mutaung, the DG, the SG, the CEO of Brand SA, and all colleagues and honorable members. Thank you very much. And now we're at the end of this meeting today, until we meet next week when we debate all these annual performance plans, honorable members. Thank you very much. The meeting now is adjourned at 12:27. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Recording stopped.